X of Swords Stasis Issue 1 heads into the far reaches of the other world, where an emissary of Saturn IX delivers invitations to many beings, offering them a chance to see the contest of swords. The people gather at the Ladies' Court, where a vote is cast, finding Jamie Braddock and Avalon voting in favour, having nothing to hide in their borders. The mysterious beings of Megator are next to vote, but Saturn IX has no idea what the silent beings mean, thinking next time they should just stay home if they're not going to answer her questions. The votes are counted and the nays win, meaning Blightspoke's request to open the borders between the provinces is denied. The representative from Blightspoke, Gia Whitechapel, doesn't care, knowing places like Mercator can't lock them out and claim a seat at the meeting, so they will go where they please. Merlin knows that she is implying an invasion is imminent, reminding Whitechapel that votes in the court set a precedent, which allows each province to defend their borders, despite what Dryador's seat would have them believe. The court erupts into argument, so Saturn IX bangs her gavel, shattering it into pieces as she calls for order. Saturn IX demands Famine and Pestilence finally give her answers to why they present themselves as the conquering leaders of Dryador. Famine says that Dryador doesn't exist anymore, since killing its leaders killed the province. Because of this, Dryador has now been returned to Araco, which belongs to Amenth, and they claim it in his name. Saturn IX wants to settle the contest between them and Avalon for the right to cross her land, and if they are left standing, they will tend to their behaviour. She asks about their swords, learning Araco have all of theirs and Avalon's are on the way, so Saturn IX tells her court to sit and watch the rituals as the champions will soon arrive. On Krakoa, Apocalypse hopes the champions are ready for their ritual. Gorgon says that having been to many rituals in his lifetime, most bore him, but to call on both of his blades by name intrigues him. Apocalypse calls for everyone to say their goodbyes as the heroes gather around the casting circle. Apocalypse says that many of the bearers are mutants and have tasted immortality, but now they step into the other world to defend Krakoa Earth and themselves from a death which, if it happens, they will never return from. As Apocalypse activates the circle, he tells the X-Men not to fight like a human who stands to lose just a few years of their life if they die, but like a mutant who will lose forever in paradise. 3 days before, at the last watchtower in what was once Dryador, the children of Apocalypse finish their casting circle, creating it out of the bodies of the dead. Summoner knows that some might find this excessive, but they are family after all, so why lie about art that is done well? The beings talk about their swords, some of which they know well, but others they have never heard of. Death knows that the blades that are hidden from them will be wielded by those who aren't hidden from them, and he knows some of them won't be happy with who wields them, specifically War, who knows Solemn is participating in the contest, leading to the woman say that she will eat his burned heart before swallowing her pride. Annihilation isn't pleased with that, saying that they have waited thousands of years for this and pride won't stand in their way. Annihilation orders the bearers to bring their swords since nothing else matters now. In Illuvium, Summoner meets with Redroot the Forest, who isn't happy the boy returns to her with a promise of violence, wondering if his people ever tire of all of the blood. Summoner says that he is what he is and what the world has made him, wondering if the voice of Araco would rather he lie. Redroot knows that either skin would suit the being, and Summoner says that the being has his word that no harm will come to her and she won't even need to draw her sword, but Redroot knows that that is a lie, so Summoner says that this doesn't end without the two halves of the world rejoined. Tearfully saying goodbye to the island, Redroot says that she will fight. At Ameth, War and Pestilence visit Pog, dumping a huge bag of jewels in his cave. Pog wonders where they got the jewels from, but Pestilence wonders why it matters. Pog says that he is for sale when he says so, knowing the jewels are stolen, but War just wants to know if he's for hire or not. The giant monster wants more money, so Pestilence says that he will get more when they win, since if they win, there will be a new world to plunder. Pog leaves his cave, intrigued by this new world, so he agrees to join them. Elsewhere, Summoner meets with Bay the Blood Moon, asking if she will join him, and the being immediately says they will, eager for something new to kill. The other horsemen meanwhile visit the White Sword of the Ivory Spire, who is pleased they have come in peace, knowing they were always weak, always defeating them time after time, but now they come to him with a story of a common enemy. The horsemen tell the being that they don't beg, but the White Sword says that he was there when their mother weaned them, seeing how they begged and were beaten for it, making the children run and hide, so he does know they beg. The being says that his army of 100 knew they would die for Okara, even dying for the horsemen, but what have they ever done done except bow to Amenth. He's outraged that they would ask something of him, not trusting the trader's words. The beings say that they require him and he can ask them, and should they win, it will be his. The White Sword has waited long to hear those words, deciding to join up with the horsemen as War and Pestilence meanwhile head to find Iska the Unbeaten, sharing a drink with the warrior who silently agrees to join them. Death meanwhile heads to the Black Bone, knowing that they told the dead horde outside that they would respect their temple, which is the home to the Black Bone of Amduat, which the villain collects as his sword for the competition. The villains assemble in their casting circle, as at the Starlight Citadel, the X-Men arrive via their own circle, and Betsy tells the curious Logan that this definitely isn't her home and she's barely welcome there. Storm agrees, not knowing if it's safe for them there, and Captain Avalon tells her Lady Saturnine is rather hard to please. Brian knows that them being unsettled and unsure is part of the woman's plan, since it's how she operates. Cypher thought after the ritual they will be using their swords, and Magic is very eager to use hers, but Apocalypse says the swords were just a key, thinking of them as a pass to signal one is worthy of continuing to the next steps of the contest. Wolverine knows that he never needed rules or steps to know how to use a sword, and Gorgon agrees, wanting to kill Saturnine for her games. Apocalypse calms his friend, telling them as long as they play by the rules of the game, it suits them since Saturnine doesn't have within her the thing that joins the mutants together. The lady arrives, telling the mutants that she will do what she pleases in her own home, asking Logan if he knows what happens when they die in her realm, knowing she could easily kill him with the snap of her fingers and Wolverine wouldn't exist anymore ever. Betsy demands to be given the rules of the game so they can all play fair, but Saturnine doesn't wish to be rushed, directing them all to their own chambers so they can freshen up for the feast in the Hall of the Fallen Banners. Heading to their rooms, the mutants all find tarot cards that Saturnine drew from her decks, each representing them. Apocalypse finds his card, immediately crushing it and knowing the game no longer suits him. Saturnine meanwhile casts some of her power out into the world as Rill comes to see her master, telling her of her next meeting. As they walk, the woman is confronted by Apocalypse, who demands to know the meaning of the insulting cards. Saturnine isn't happy that being ripped his card up, but Apocalypse doesn't care, demanding answers. Saturnine says the cards were very old and very rare, really wishing he would treat them more kindly. She reassures the being that it was just a card and it shouldn't upset him so. Boarding the elevator, Saturnine says that she finds Apocalypse curious, since he defeated Morgan Le Fay in battle, but instead of coming to her as an ally, he spied, invaded, and bullied his way into the Citadel. But in the end, she still invited him in, wondering if that stings the being. Apocalypse calls her a witch for provoking him, but Saturnine knows not to call the kettle black, since she knows he's been conducting his own rituals across existence, knowing the magic he claims to have studied for centuries he's barely scratched the surface of. Also, he can get to its conclusion quickly, which Saturnine questions isn't like him. Using her power, she remakes the tarot card, telling Apocalypse that he's a lot of things, but he's too old to be impatient. The elevator reaches its floor and Saturnine goes to meet with her next appointment, wondering if Apocalypse is going to accompany her, since he might be interested in this meeting. The next meeting is with Annihilation, which Apocalypse recognizes immediately, looking at his tarot card of the lovers as Annihilation removes their mask, revealing the being to be Genesis, Apocalypse's wife. Apocalypse demands to know how after all of these years she survived, and Genesis merely says that it was survival of the fittest. X of Swords Stasis Issue 1 brought us to the halfway mark of Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard's X-Men epic, setting up the final little pieces for the Contest of Swords. I enjoyed we got to spend some much needed time with the villains this issue. Characters we've barely gotten much of throughout this event has been mainly focusing on the mutant side of the sword gathering. So this issue was mainly dedicated to the villains gathering their swords, which I wish we'd gotten a little more to their trials to get the swords, since it all seemed rather a bit too easy considering what the mutants had to go through to get many of their swords, with Storm betraying Wakanda and Cypher having to literally learn how to wield a sword. Many of the villains just kind of talked with each other and decided to fight with one another. Apocalypse continues to be the real MVP of this series, not just because he's got so much invested in it with his wife and his children and returning Krakoa to Arakko and completing the lands again, but also because how Hickman and Howard are treating him, which is as a great heroic leader of the X-Men. It's a wonderful take on the character, and I'm looking forward to more as we enter the second portion of the books. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.